Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
You've
I've,
been a very busy person.
pardon me?
I said you've been a very busy person this year.
Yeah, a little too much. This field season for research has been crazy. It really has. Yeah.
Well, this chat is just more so like a profile for maybe students that are going to become early professionals or high school students that are maybe looking at being in the environmental field. So I've done these with quite a few different people across our field. Some do education, some are more fluvial geomorphology like us, or some are
Yeah.
more ecology based, just to kind of give options to people because there's not really a big guide about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess a good way to start would be telling us a little bit about your journey to get where you are now, like educationally and experientially.
It's twisted and convoluted and terrible. It was. I really am a generalist. I think you know that from working with me at Niagara College, et cetera. But I've always liked the outdoors. So if we go back to, grade school, high school stuff, I'm pre Xbox video games, that kind of thing. And a great day was going outside from sun up to sundown. And that just has permeated through my adult life. I work with these computer things and I have an iPad, and I have a game console, but I don't think I've turned the game console on in over 15 years. So it's just, I'm an outside guy. So when came time to go to school after high school, it was, I'd like to do something outside. And I initially went to the University of Guelph, but I was way too young. And being way too young, I was way too unserious. And I just drank all my meal cards and I flunked out hard. So came back to Hamilton, where I grew up, in Ancaster area, and I kind of languished. My mom and dad said to me, "Oh, you can stay with us, but you got to go to school or get a job." So I actually went into the factories for a little bit. I made tires for Firestone. And that was really, really hard work that taught me one very important lesson. That was I needed to get my rear end back to school and get out of the factories. So I just kind of grabbed whatever I could get into. And that was civil engineering, transportation engineering at Mohawk College. And at first I felt that it was a big failure on my part. I was brainwashed by as my generation was in so far as you got to go to university or you go become a tradesman, something like that. And college was just not on anybody's radar back in those days, other than it was for the wannabe go to university types. So I had an opportunity to go to McMaster after I had done a year at Niagara College at Mohawk College. And I thought to myself, no, I'm not going to be a quitter again. I'm going to actually finish this diploma. And it was a co-op program. So I got some excellent experience in stuff I really didn't want to do, traffic engineering, transportation engineering, but there was a smattering of environmental. And I did noise studies for the region of Waterloo, who was one of my co-op hosts for, I want to say 4 or 5 co-op terms. And I got to see environmental planning, environmental engineering, and that started to spark an interest. So I accepted a full-time position at the region of Waterloo. I only lasted as a traffic transportation modeler inside the planning department for a couple of, well, I think 8 or 9 months before I was offered a position for double the pay down in Niagara. Still doing traffic modeling, but at double the pay, it was a no-brainer to move. And I further started to hate sitting behind a computer and doing traffic modeling. So I was about to quit, and somebody from the environmental group said to me, come work for me, get out of the union, become a manager, and put together a group of people that are going to manage or monitor and analyze sewer and water networks. So I started that, started up a small group, and really fell in love with that hard engineering and environmental. And I became more or less a flow monitoring expert. And from that flow monitoring, I was able to get back into my love for the outdoors, streams, lakes, that kind of thing, by monitoring not just sewers, but creeks and streams and lakefronts, wetlands down in Niagara. And that sparked me to go and do a master's in fluvial geomorphology at Brock University. And that was the springboard into the remainder of my career. So I did the sewer modeling stuff for probably 13, 14 years, somewhere in there. Got an idea of what the engineering world is business-wise, how to run a group. The group became almost 30 people at one point. So, and I ended up not liking that because I found I was more of a babysitter, sitting in union grievance meetings, yelling at people for not performing work properly or having bad drug addictions or personal problems at home, trying not to get them fired, but trying to work through it with them. It was interesting, but not what I wanted to do. I wanted to get my hands dirty, wet particularly, and solve environmental problems. So in the region of Niagara, I was given an opportunity to work in research with a fellow by the name of Dr. Edgar Lemon, who was faculty at Cornell University. He had retired, moved to Niagara-on-the-Lake, and had taken on the municipality in the region, saying that, oh, we should use constructed wetlands to treat sewage and not facultative anaerobic aerobic lagoons. And that was really interesting. I got a part-time job with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Environment Canada out of that. And that really cemented my sort of professional role as an environmental scientist, more or less. More importantly, it sparked the desire to move on and out from the sewer engineering side of things. I did fool around with the idea of going back to McMaster to do a civil engineering degree. I think I did 7 or 8 courses before I was offered an opportunity at Niagara College to teach ecosystem restoration. And I took that. I was part of the team that developed the ecosystem restoration curriculum. I didn't think I was going to teach inside that program, but 2 years after it was started, I ended up being one of the primary professors in that, as you know, because you were one of the students. And then consulting just kind of fell in after that. People would ask me, oh, can you design this wetland? Oh, can you look at this stream? Oh, can you help us with this, that, or the other thing? And that expanded into roles in drainage engineering. It expanded into roles into hydraulic engineering with natural systems, designing wetlands, designing streams. So I cemented it under Dr. Keith Tinkler as a fluvial geomorphologist. I'm not licensed because I don't have an undergraduate degree in fluvial geomorphology. I wish I did, and I wish that somebody like you had been around then to say, okay, here's what a fluvial geomorphologist is, and here's why you should consider it. It's a lucrative profession. Had I have known that, I wouldn't have wasted time with a mathematics degree. I probably would have gone into a geology degree, specifically to lead into the master's in fluvial geomorphology. So it was a bit of a difficult thing for me to go from engineering technology diploma, an undergraduate degree in applied mathematics at the University of Waterloo, and then do a master's in earth sciences. So when Brock first got a load of me, they said, oh, you've never taken any real geology courses, so you're a deficient entry into the master's program. so you're going to have to do extra courses, and we'll put you on probation. I got lucky. I did really well in those first 3 or 4 courses, and they waived the probation, they waived the extra courses. So I did only have to do the courses that a regular master's student has to do. So there wasn't that much of a lag between me being able to hang up a shingle and say, hey, I'm a fluvial geomorphologist. And that was at the time that the professional geoscientists of Ontario were just getting started up. And they did send me some correspondence and say, hey, you're practicing as a fluvial geomorphologist, yet you don't have an accredited undergraduate degree. And I responded back to them, well, I'm practicing before you guys even existed. So if you want to sit down and talk with me about potential grandfathering or bring me up on a lawsuit for practicing without a license, then we need to sit down and talk. And we never did. I did enroll in the College of Professional Geoscientists to start picking away at it, but I was really busy with my career and doing actual work and decided that, yeah, I'll pick away at it, but I may never get to finish it. And to be fair, the PGO people, the APGO, the Association of Professional Geoscientists of Ontario, have not ever come back to me and said to me, cease and desist. And when I do work on fluvial geomorphology files, I typically have a licensed PGO or a limited PGO working with me that stamps the material. And I typically act as the senior designer or senior person and just kind of rubber stamp things. And that's what I'm doing today with GEI. Though in the back of my mind, I thought maybe I should, after I finish the latest endeavor, which I'll talk about in a second, a PhD, maybe when I finish the PhD, I'll go back, pick up a few of the courses at Brock University and actually get the undergraduate degree and become licensed. But I'm 63 years of age. That'll take me to probably around 66, 67, 68. There's just no point. I need to retire. So the PhD is yet another sort of veering off out of my comfort lane into fish ecology and stream ecology. So I'm doing a PhD at the University of Toronto Scarborough campus. I believe it's in I know it's in the Department of Physical and Environmental Studies, but I took courses in the biology department, which is way out of my comfort level, but super interesting because it's way out of my comfort level. It means I've been learning a ton of things about fish. And the whole thing is I've been building streams and wetlands for almost 35, 40 years now, between 35 to 40 years. And I've always been building them without an eye on those things that should be using those structures as habitat. And I would say to sort of my mentors or the people that I respected, who are we building this for? And largely I would get answered with oh, don't worry about it, build it and they will come. That's the field of dreams theorem, right? And that never sat well with me. So when Dr. Nick Mandrack at the University of Toronto, we worked together on building some wetlands in the Beaver Creek watershed to support species at risk grass pickerel. We completed my design back we built my design back in 2011, 2012. And I came back at it just to have a look with Nick Mandrack at the University of Toronto and Dr. Andrew Drake at the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. And I was shocked at how well the system had done. I hadn't seen it for 13, 12 years in there somewhere. And it looked like it was not built by humans. It looked like it was very old wetland habitat that was supporting warm water fishes, warm water reptiles generally, turtles, all kinds of neat stuff. And Dr. Mandrack, Nick, said to me, we should write this up. And I said, I'm thinking of retiring. I don't think I have time. And he said, well, come and study with me. And I said, oh, Sean, I'm not doing that. I'm way too old. after thinking about it a while and looking at Beaver Creek, how well it did, I thought, yeah, I really should write this up. And I should maybe join Nick's lab as a PhD student. Now that I'm retired and don't have that overhead of having to scramble to pay my mortgage, etc., I can take some time to make some honest scientific inquiry. I don't have any TA obligations for this PhD, which is very kind of the University of Toronto and Dr. Mandrak. I also don't have any obligations to be a research assistant. So I'm just set loose to look at streams and the fishes that live in them and decide what matters and what doesn't matter in the design process. So that's where I am today at 63 years of age. I should finish the PhD within a year and a half to 2 years. So that'll put me right at 65. And then I'm going to have to ask myself, what do you want to do from this point out? I need to be a good husband, so maybe I won't go back to Brock and get the PGO, but I'd like to still do a few research projects or design projects here and there, just to keep my feet wet, pun intended. And I'm sorry, I'm really blurry. I don't know why.
Yeah, it started a little bit ago, and I don't know why either. Oh,
I think it's the
there
autofocus
we
on my
go.
silly camera. I think I need to replace the
Probably.
camera. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, that was really long-winded. I apologize for that, but
No, it was fantastic. This is kind of the whole point of these chats is to be able to map out people's journeys who have been in this for a little while, just so people can understand it, which I think I've learned more than anything is nobody linearly became what they are. The people that I've spoken to always started out left field somewhere else, and maybe they took a geography class and they fell in love with that kind of thing, and then it sparked it from there. Or in your case, more like a snake all over the place until you got to where you are, and you're still doing all sorts of very interesting things in left field stuff. So it's I think it's a really good lesson or piece of information for people who do watch this that that's the norm. Like there is no crinkle cut, you know, journey to get to a place. Like I'm sure obviously if you want to be a technician, you go to college to be a technician, then you work as a technician. I guess that's a little more clear cut. But for the most part, the more senior people that I've spoken to in this field, it wasn't like that. And I think it's a really good thing to call
I
it.
totally agree with you. And but also, those people that went to school to become technicians, for the most part, they kept the continuing education going and completed more steps on their journey in their life to, become a manager after being a technician for those that magic 10,000 hours of experience, right? And after you've done those 5 years or so, you say, okay, what am I doing next? And I've stayed connected with a few people that I went to Mohawk College's the engineering diploma, and they've all had interesting lives. They've used that Mohawk diploma as a stepping stone, whether it's linearly through transportation engineering or like I did. One young woman who I went to school with way back in the 80s at Mohawk, I connected with her, I think 2 years ago, and found out she finished a master's in psychology at the University of Toronto. And
Oh wow.
she's a mental health counselor, which that's a big change from transportation engineering for sure. And then there's another fellow that did his co-op as I did. I also worked at the City of Toronto for my engineering co-op, and there was another young guy who kept going at the City of Toronto, and he worked for the City of Toronto for 38 years, I think it was. But he kept taking courses in project management or what have you, and ended up being a manager for I don't recall what it was, managing traffic signal operations in a huge complex city like the City of Toronto. So he did very well, and it's an important lesson to not discount people that decide to go through the community college route. And
No.
when I taught you guys at the Niagara College, I hope I said to everybody, hey, I've been the benefactor of having both a college diploma and a university degree. And I think I am way stronger than my colleagues that graduated with just the university degree. Or
For sure.
conversely, my colleagues that graduated with just a Mohawk College diploma, I didn't run my bald head into a glass ceiling because I had the degree and I was able to become a manager and become a director and owner of a company, several companies actually. So I think continuing education and that old hackneyed phrase about uh, continuing education being part of that lifelong journey, or else you become stagnant, is really on the mark. And for those of us that have become addicted to it, we retire and we still take stuff because we've got inquiring minds. We want to know the answers to questions that might have nagged us personally. And for me, it was, why was I building all these streams and wetlands? Pardon me, was it just to satiate regulations against pollution or for environmental laws and regulations? Or is it for something greater than just humanity? Is it for, in this case, I'm sitting here today sifting through reams and reams of brook trout data. And, you got to be a certain kind of crazy to look at thousands upon thousands of photographs of brook trout that you've caught in the field, but it does start to answer innate questions about, okay, for these structures that I built in 12 Mile Creek, a cold water system that should be supporting brook trout, did I do the right thing? And
Mm.
the answer largely is not quite. I could have done better if I had known more about the targets, not just humans. So controlling flooding, making sure that property is safe from erosion, but while we're there, while we're putting millions of dollars into these streams, let's make sure that the right creatures are taking advantage of those streams. And ecologies are extremely complex things. And we're now figuring out that we can stabilize streams and create good, robust wetlands, but if the right creatures aren't there to create those feedback systems ecologically, then you're probably not really restoring those systems fully. So,
Yeah, it's definitely a holistic type of career to be in, whether you are an engineer or an ecologist or a fluvial geomorphologist or just not just, but like only doing the GIS side of things or things like that. It needs to be a holistic mindset. You need to have a holistic mindset to do that job as well as you can.
yeah,
And and I think those of us who have worked in places like consulting feel that every project like, oh, I know a little bit about this but I don't know quite enough. I'll reach out to this person because that's their specialty, and then they'll write that section of the report, but I'll write this one because this is my specialty, and together it takes a team. And that's why it looks a little crazy when these documents are produced and there's like 7 people that are listed as an author, but that's why. And even them concentrated, they may not know everything either.
yeah,
So yeah, life is definitely a keep learning process, especially in this type of field, whether that's through education or experience. I think both are very valid, and like you had said, university and college are both valid for different reasons.
yeah,
I think that's what that program at Niagara is so good, because it offers that, because you need prior education to get into that program in the first place, because the intent is to complement other forms of learning that you've had before to make you a little more rounded in your experience with things. And I certainly felt that that's where I got the most field
yeah,
experience, was in
yeah.
that program.
Yeah, and it takes a village is what you started by saying, and for those of us that have people like you that did an undergraduate degree at some good Canadian, sorry, my laptop is dinging on me.
That's okay.
People like you that did a degree at some great Canadian institute, um, and then chase it with a hands-on college diploma. I'm jealous of you guys. We didn't have that opportunity for people my age. Not explicitly. It wasn't okay. postgraduate, the colleges are offering really good hands-on stuff for postgraduate capping of your largely theoretical degree. I wish I did because I think I would have sprung more quickly into the career that I found the most joy in itself. And I didn't struggle, I just bounced around, and I'm very fortunate. I'm never going to say, oh, boohoo, poor me. Like I've had a very good life. I've had a career that I quite honestly never deserved. It's just been really great. If I was to get hit by the proverbial streetcar tonight and I was laying on the rail tracks croaking, I would say, you know what, it's been pretty good. It was a good run. I have nothing to be angry about. But I think that things are more defined in terms of that succession. And as I was starting to say, it takes a village to not just raise a child, but to make a project that these days and it was always a myth, Thomas Alva Edison saying, Eureka, I found a light bulb, right? Or I discovered the light bulb. That didn't happen. The light bulb was a team of scientists and technologists, engineers that unfortunately all stole from one another way back then and pushed technology forward that way. And that network of theft has now been entrenched in what we call consulting corporations or research think tanks, right?
Mhm.
And instead of stealing from one another, we all collaborate. So I think that things like colleges and particularly upper year universities, where you're no longer a lone wolf studying on your own to get those grades, but you're working in a team to pass, or you're working in a team and applied postgraduate diploma, that's the value where you see, okay, this is how I'm to act to be effective in my own selfish private career, personal career, sorry, but I do need to interact with a whole bunch of other people. So I need to get inside the head of the hardcore civil and hydraulic engineers. I need to get inside the heads of the planners that stick handle all the crazy bureaucracy that I am never going to understand in my life. But what do I bring to the table? And I hope it's a bit of creativity and solutions that leverage natural systems to recreate systems that aren't just concrete and rebar, that do have a natural side to them. And the best compliment I've ever received in my career was from my dad, who has nothing to do with this sort of stuff. He looked at one of the projects I did. It was actually Shadoke Creek, the bank of Shadoke Creek beside Highway 403. Took him down. He lives in Ancaster. He's quite elderly now. Took him down to see what the project was. And he looks at me, looks at the very long live crib wall and says, this looks like nothing. It just looks like a bunch of plants and the stream that used to be here. And I said, Dad, that's the best thing you could ever say to me, that what we've done is we've stabilized the stream, we've created habitat for targeted species, and you can't even tell that humans did this, that this is
Yeah.
us tinkering with nature and actually using math, physics, science, engineering to do all of that. So that felt really good. My dad looked at me
Yeah.
very puzzled and the hell are you talking about, Ian? So
Like, don't worry about it. It matters to me, but don't worry about it. Yeah, those compliments are definitely the best, and especially well, from your dad, of course, that's very personal.
oh yeah,
And that's fantastic, but especially from other scientists that then walk through a creek with you and they're like, okay, well, where's the part that you worked on? And you're like, you're standing in it. What do you
yeah,
mean? You're like, whoa, I had no idea because it took so well and
yeah,
it looks so natural, but it's working so effectively. That's honestly the gold star that we all hope for. And I think even in the failures, that's a really good thing because then we learn why that didn't work. And then that project can then help other people to not have to do that the first time and they can do something better the next time. And I think that's the beauty of our field is even
absolutely.
in the mistakes, we learn stuff all the time. And even the stuff that I was learning in my second year of my undergrad degree is now different when I go and do it in real life because we've learned stuff even in those 10 years.
Yeah, yeah. I forget
So
where your undergrad was. Are you
Geography and environmental management.
at Waterloo?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're a BES, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah, I was. So that was great because I got my hand in every aspect. So I did like GIS, I did ecology, I did some field work, but I also did desktop analysis and literature reviews. And
Cool.
so I kind of got to test everything out. And I was very intentional by design that I did it that way because I had no idea what I wanted to do specifically. And they didn't really have a list of careers at that time in our field. It was just if you know somebody then you know, but they pushed engineering all the time because it was
Yeah,
Waterloo. Well, I don't have an engineering degree, but how do I work with those people?
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, then I came to Niagara and was like, oh, I could be like you, or I could be like you, or I could be like
yeah,
you. Like Deanna, for instance, is more ecology,
yeah.
whereas you were a lot more like GIS and fluvial geomorphology focused, and that like and everybody had their own niche, and I could actually see options for my future. And so that's why when I started Bluebird, I was like, you know what would be really great is if other people got that. And so that's
That's
why
very
we
cool.
do this.
Yeah, yeah, that's very cool. I my parents were both teachers. My father a high school teacher, my mother a primary school teacher. And looking back from this perspective, I'm a senior citizen for God's sakes, and I think
Not
well,
yet.
there's no point in avoiding it. But you look back at high school, and those poor teachers had no clue. They themselves were bumping along, almost panicking the way I did in the beginning of my career, and the way I think everybody does in the beginning of their career. Just make enough money to make a mortgage, have some stability, have a family, and they went through teachers college, so they were focused like this on pedagogy and the
Mhm.
educational sciences as opposed to reaching out and guiding students that were mercurial in their interests and all over the place. I don't know how you could do it. And unfortunately, our factory education system is more built for creating screw turning robots than it is for creative, innovative thinkers. It you know, uh, Systemic testing, that kind of stuff. It only makes sure that you can get enough resources to fill the need for engineering buildings and roads or cost accounting so people don't commit financial fines or in the trades, creating houses that have plumbing where the water actually flows downhill, that kind of stuff. It's not really geared for individuals, and because we're austerity wise cutting back so much in the education world, far worse in the US than here, but we don't have enough guidance counselors that can sit an individual student down, crawl into their heads, and say, hey, you seem to really love this. And
Mhm.
I've been trained to go out there and know about so many weird and wonderful, obscure educational opportunities, programs that I'm going to say, Ian Smith, you really like streams and fish, and you should consider going to this school and taking this trajectory. There would have been no hope in hell for that happening in the middle 1970s when I was in high school. And I suspect it's not gotten any better because I'm a father of two kids that were actually told, oh, they both wanted to become engineers. Actually, my daughter wanted to be a physicist, to start an astrophysicist. My son always wanted to be an aerospace engineer. And the crazy guidance counselor at the school district that they were from said to both my kids, oh, don't worry about physics. You don't need physics. And to say that to my daughter, who really wanted to go into astrophysics, made no sense whatsoever. And to my
Mhm.
son, who was going into aerospace engineering, to say you don't need physics was a huge mistake. Luckily, I, as a parent, was able to say to those kids, oh, no, no, you need physics. You're going to summer school for physics. And that's what both of them did. So,
Yeah.
they would have been given huge problems if they listened to that guidance counselor. And
Yeah.
she was a good person, a nice person. She meant well, but I think that she was not given the tools herself to meet the objectives of individual students. It was more, okay, let's get everybody out of this grade 12 program with a basic amount of literacy so that they can go and get a job and a mortgage and join the middle class. Not here's how they're going to rise to their greatest potential. So that also taught me that we personally are responsible for our own success and our own happiness. And that's probably why I bounced around the way I did, was that I was desperately looking all over the place to find that happiness and that feeling of personal success, that I actually did something that mattered to not just me selfishly, but to humanity in a larger scale and extra humanity, beyond humanity, like to things that live in creeks and wetlands, that kind of thing. So
Yeah,
it's all
I
high and mighty and you know unintentional from the basis, but when you stand and look at your mid 60s backwards, you think, oh, it would have been nice if I could have been more focused. But as I'm getting hit by the streetcar and my life is flashing before my eyes, I say to myself, hey, I didn't do such a bad job after all. So I can die and say, yeah, it was a hell of a ride. I'm glad I did it this way. Could have been better, but it worked out.
well, hindsight's 2020,
Yeah.
and I completely agree with you about the guidance. Even in university, our guidance counselors, like our program coordinators, were receptionists. They had no idea how to help us. Actually, hold on, let me correct that. The ones in the environment faculty didn't know how to help us. The ones in the other faculties understood a bit more of how to guide their students. And maybe I'll give props to the planning department in the environment faculty because they were very, very focused on what they were doing. But for geography, for ecology, they had no idea how to help us. I remember asking, okay, well, like, what can I do with this? Or like, what careers options do we have? Or like, do we have co-op that would help us? And at the time, I kept getting told by older generation, like fourth years, third years, whatever, that the co-op options for us were abysmal. You either had to hope that you got in with an engineering firm or you just took whatever you could get because there weren't environmental opportunities, which discouraged me from taking co-op. And I never did. My
Uh,
first practical experience was doing field courses, which you had to pay extra money for at that time. So then I worked to get the money to then do the field work because I was like, I think I need this, which then led me to Niagara and everything from there because the hands-on experience is so valuable. But we didn't even have guidance in university, and they expected us to graduate and know what we were supposed to be doing. And I think that it's such a failure, and it's very disappointing that that's how that was. And I'm hoping it's better now that it's been a few years since I was a student there, but hopefully more resources like this show up for people, or people see this and this could be their spark to be like, I do love water. I didn't even know that that was a thing because I didn't even know fluvial geomorphologist was a thing till I met you.
I literally fell into it face first. It was pure serendipity. I wanted to veer my career from more of the engineering side, hard engineering, into working in the environment. So when I went, there's life circumstances. I couldn't just drop my job and go off to the best university possible for environmental sciences. So I was a manager at the region of Niagara looking after environmental monitoring and analysis. And I think by the time I went back for the master's, I was, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years into my career and had a mortgage and a family. And, I couldn't just up and go on a whim to some program that would tickle my fancy. So I went to Brock right across the road from where I was working and said, hey, can I enroll in a master's program, something environmental? And I talked to people in the urban and environmental studies group who were wonderful people, but it was more planning, and I really didn't want to get into policy and planning. I just was not geared that way. And I had completed this undergraduate degree in applied mathematics. And when I was at Waterloo, and when I was at Waterloo, I don't recall ever sitting down with a counselor or a career advisor. The opportunity never arose. I never even thought of it. I thought, okay, I just need that piece of paper. That'll actually allow me to start progressing into upper management. That was the whole reason to do that. And I rationalized the math degree two reasons. One stupid, one sensical. The stupid one was University of Waterloo is like MIT North. If I get a math degree from Waterloo, then I've got some oomph behind my resume all of a sudden.
Mhm.
Though, the one thing that I felt we were all being pushed towards in Waterloo math was to get enough credits in computer science so that we could be computer science people. And I did not want to do that. I've always seen computers as tools. In the trades, we don't create hammerologists, we create carpenters. We don't create wrenchologists, we create plumbers. And the hammer has been replaced by much better tools. I think I said this to you guys when I taught you guys GIS, that GIS is just a tool to do what it is we want to do in the real world. And they're going to be bigger and better GISs, or maybe even artificial intelligence. You just speak your desire into the machine and it does what we would take, thousands of lines of code or keystrokes to do. So I don't think focusing on the tools is the right thing. I think focusing on the end and not the means to the end is what's more important. So I tried to follow that as I went back to school. So the geology department actually said, oh yeah, we do a lot of environmental stuff and you can come and get a master's with us. And I'll be blunt, if Brock had have had an environmental engineering program undergraduate or an environmental engineering master's program, I probably would have gone into that. But because they didn't, and I needed to do this largely in my lunch hours, weekends, and evenings, it was, okay, I'm gonna do a geology degree, an earth sciences degree. And that's where I learned, oh, there's this thing called fluvial geomorphology. At first, I thought I was gonna do groundwater sciences and groundwater modeling and maybe some neat stuff with capturing groundwater and, I don't know, reinstituting streams from groundwater focus, that kind of thing, because I always loved streams. But then when I found out there's an actual science of rebuilding and understanding and rebuilding streams, I was like, I'm in, sign me up. So that's how that mutated. And I wish that I did really well in geology in high school, but I thought, yeah, I'm not going to become an oil patch explorer. I'm not at all interested in drilling into rocks for whatever reason. So that got abandoned, even though I had an aptitude for it. And if somebody had said to me, oh, wait a minute, you could become a stream scientist, a river scientist, I would have jumped at that. But nobody said that. And stupid kid me never was curious enough to turn over enough stones, pun intended, to see that there is something like fluvial geomorphology or river engineering or river sciences. So again, I'm
You didn't know
blaming
what to
somebody
ask.
else. Pardon me.
I said you didn't know what to ask.
No, I had no idea. And so by you doing this Bluebird environmental stuff, I think it's awesome because you're going to sit in front of a couple of kids, more than a couple, but at least a couple are going to say, hey, I want to do what she's doing, and you're going to change their lives. And that's what matters. That's what really matters.
That's the goal. If it, especially like with these chats or going into classrooms or any of the resources that I post online or anything like that, like I'm just hoping it's one person, like at least one person, because then that person could be the next person to design the thing that we need,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
environmental science or otherwise, even if what I offer here is the inspiration that they need to not do this because they realize it's not for them,
Yeah.
then that's good too, So yeah, I wish we had more resources like this. And upon that thought, I was like, well, why don't I just do it? is there anything against me just doing it? Because I thought it all had to be government stuff and it totally doesn't. And the kids seem very receptive when I go into classrooms. They're very excited to learn. They want to know. They just don't know what to ask. And I think that was always my issue too, because I'm very precocious. You know this. And I'll ask a million and one questions until I understand everything about everything for something. But if I don't know to ask it, then I'm not going to learn it. And there was a lot of times in GIS, like with you, that I didn't know to ask something and you'd tell me something. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Like
Well,
that's a great, like I wouldn't have thought to ask you about that or things like that. So just hoping to foster that in people to think about other things to ask and that hopefully educators will think, oh well, they haven't asked that, but maybe they'll want to know and tell them anyways. Because what's the worst that's going to happen? You tell them and they don't care.
yeah, yeah, and life moves on, and away you go, right? So, stepping back one here, I always say yes to people that ask me like what you've asked, and
Mm.
others that say, hey, would you mind talking to me about career paths, or would you talk to my kid? And
Mm.
so, uh, graduate from your program, I always forget when you graduated, so I don't know. You might know this person, Tessa Anderson. Do you know
Oh,
Tessa? Was she?
it's very familiar. I graduated right when the pandemic started in 2020
Uh,
because we couldn't
so
do our field course.
yeah, I think you might have been not the last year I taught. I taught.
No, you did one more.
I did, yeah, and I met Tessa in that year after you,
Yeah.
and she started working with Trout Unlimited,
Cool.
became the public liaison coordinator. And then she came to me and said, you know, I'm really sparked up about uh, the stuff that you're doing and that I sampled through Trout Unlimited. What can I do to increase my opportunities? And I said, well, uh, consider a master's degree. So she went and did the professional master's at the University of Toronto,
Oh,
the
cool.
Scarborough campus. So the Masters of Environmental Sciences, it's called the MENVSC. And I actually hired her to be my research assistant
Oh,
last
cool.
field year. Yeah. And so we were doing fish sampling, trying to figure out who's using what chunks of the 12 Mile Creek. 12 Mile Creek is my cold water research area. I'm looking at warm water fishes, cool water fishes, and cold water fishes, particularly species at risk, and whether the work that we've done. So for warm water fishes in Beaver Creek, we made the stream into a less channelized drainage ditch and more into a series of complex wetlands with a stream centrally flowing through these human-made structures that hopefully don't look human-made. And we found that warm water species of concern, aka I almost said brook trout, which is the cold water species I'm looking at pictures of right now, but the grass pickerel responded brilliantly to the intervention that we did. And it ran contrary to standard drainage engineering practices and protocols. Although we proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can get good drainage and farming can coexist with habitat for species at risk in the guise of designated drains. No surprise there for those of us that have worked it for decades, but to the people that are setting policy for planning or agriculture, they seem shocked that you can actually have good drainage and good habitat for these warm water species of fish or mussels or reptiles, amphibians, whatever. And you know that's kind of the real reward in my career right now. But so I'm turning this into too long a story. I apologize, but
That's okay. I'm
Tessa,
very interested to learn about it,
well,
so it's great.
Tessa and I had sampled the 12 Mile Creek, and one of the sampling sites was the Boy Scout camp down at the lower reaches of the 12 Mile Creek. And the Boy Scout people said, "Ooh, the stuff you did was really interesting. Would you guys mind just coming and standing around while the scouts and guides and the brownies, I don't think they're called brownies anymore, and the Cubs take dip nets and go into the stream on a scout day that we're having. And I, of course, because of what I said to you already, love this stuff. I said, sure. And Tessa, would you come and help me? And we had a great afternoon watching kids fall in the river when it's way too cold. I think this would have been April. And these kids are up to their noses practically in the stream, netting darters and creek chub and catfish and suckers and all kinds of neat stuff. And we met quite a few people, uh, not just little kids, but there was a young woman. Her name was Jessie. I'm looking at an email that came into me a few weeks ago that I haven't responded to because I've been so damn busy. But I'll read it to you. Hi, Ian. My name is Shauna. We met at the Wetaskiwins Environmental Camp during the Creek Study activity this past spring. My daughter Jessie was the grade 11 student who wants to go into some kind of ecological restoration pathway. We'd love to connect with you, perhaps sometime later this month before school begins, to learn about some post-secondary pathways you would recommend. She really enjoyed learning from you, and your passion really spoke to her. She's been reading about the Enviro Technician program at Niagara College and the pathway with Trent University. She's also curious about the Brock and maybe even Lakehead up in Thunder Bay. I'm from Fort Francis originally, so she's quite familiar with the area and has family not too far away. She's away working at camp for 2 more weeks, but we're back the week of August 25th. So I'm going to reach out, but I'm also going to bounce her to you if you don't mind.
I absolutely don't mind. And actually, I put together an education guide a couple of years ago, which only shows environmental programs in Ontario.
Oh,
But it also has tabs for funding opportunities, for certifications that help you stand out, for organizations you can get involved in and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely bounce her my way. I'd love to have a chat with her and hopefully I can help her out.
okay, cool. I thank you for that. I'm more than happy to talk to her and her daughter again, but I'm just brain damaged by my own career path, how convoluted and weird it is. And I am probably now almost 2 generations removed from Jesse. So I think you're going to, pardon me, I got the hiccups. You're going to be much more contemporary and much more topical for young Jesse than I ever will be. Like I can be passionate about these things, and passion extends beyond generations. I'm certain of that, but the context of how to actually survive and thrive in the environmental field is better coming from you than me. So
Oh, well,
I
thank you. That's very
appreciate it.
kind of you to say.
Oh no, it's the truth, and it's very selfish because I'll say, yeah, I'll give you a few minutes time, but Shelby Groen's going to give way more topical information, and you're going to end up taking more of Shelby's time than my time, but it'll pay off better than me. So yeah.
Well, I'm happy to help where I can. I think if anything, she'll benefit from both perspectives, like both a senior restoration person versus somebody who's more newer to this type of thing. I think it'll be great for her to have both. Um, but yeah, well, thank you. That's sorry. It's such a nice compliment. Thank you so much.
Oh,
I appreciate that. That's really kind of you.
well, it's not meant as a compliment. It's just pure fact. So anyway, there you
I
go.
take it as a compliment. I love doing this kind of stuff, so it's nice.
Well, it's cool that you're doing it, and it
You.
shows the deficiency in the not just Canadian but Western education systems, that we're so stuck in industrial age factory automation of learning that it I think I said to you when I taught you I don't do tests because tests are really just a lazy way to rubber stamp for the government that yes, Shelby can become a bolt turner, and that's not the way life should work. It should be you should be kindling in Tinder for that passion, that flame of passion, right? So that
For
sounds,
sure.
but
I
that's
think Benny's
what it is.
always that curiosity, and that's the problem, because everything's possible. As long as
Yeah,
you put in the work, everything is possible.
I also have a sensitivity of not wanting to indoctrinate kids. Like I always taught at the graduate, postgraduate level. I have very little experience teaching undergraduate students, you know, a little bit here and there, but I long felt that, okay, the people that are in the postgraduate programs, ecosystem, environmental, whatever, and teaching at U of T or Brock, that I didn't have to worry about indoctrination. They were there of their own volition. They wanted to learn this stuff. And it's a bit of a selfish thing too, because at the end of my career at Niagara College, they said, "Oh, we don't want you teaching in the ecosystem program anymore. You can go teach calculus to undergraduate students at the main campus in Welland." And that was the end of it for me. I don't want to do that because a great number of those students would be there because they were told to be there by their parents. They weren't there because they wanted to be there. I
Yeah.
just did not want to engage with people like that. They were forced into, whether by themselves, circumstances, or by relatives, into that situation. That's just not conducive to loving what you're learning. And if you don't love what you're learning, life's not going to be fun. And if it's not fun, don't do it. Period.
Well, I told you this would be half an hour, and it ended up being an hour. So sorry for taking up so
Uh,
much of your time. I'm sure you've had such a long day.
it's a
Uh,
large part of my being running off at the mouth. I apologize for that. So,
no, don't. I love it. I'm sure the people that watch this video are gonna love it as well. We get quite a few views from conservation authorities.
really?
Oh heck yeah! For the I watch every single like little
Oh,
number that comes in, and a lot of conservation authorities and local like Friends of Killaley Meadows, for instance.
oh yeah.
They're very involved, and I actually met one of the women that's a part of it at the Hope in the Land Expo in April in London,
Okay.
and she came up to me. She's like, are you like at Bluebird Environmental like on Instagram?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" And she's like, "Oh, I love your content. It's so good." I was like, "I know, I see you. I see all your likes and all your and your everything." So, uh, yeah, I they've been loving these types of chats. I think the last one I had I think was with the man who Adam Chamberlain from Haldimand County. He
Oh,
runs the forestry department there.
yeah. I think I've heard the name. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's
Cool.
great. I met him at the Ontario Woodlot Association Brant chapter AGM.
That's
And I
hilarious.
was like, hey, quick question. Would you
Yeah,
mind
yeah.
doing a chat like this? So
I,
anyway,
I'm
I
shocked that people seem to want to hear what I have to say. Brendan Spearin, an old GIS grad who's now doing GIS at Department of Fisheries, has a podcast, and he interviewed me, I want to say 5, 6 months ago. And
what's it
I'm
called?
shocked at how, just search on Google for Brendan, Breandan, Spearin, Sparin, and he talks about fisheries professionals. So I
Oh,
watched some
cool.
before he interviewed me. I watched some of them because I'm not a big podcast watcher or listener, but yeah, it was really interesting. More because I'm veering into an avenue of my career now, or my education that is so foreign or alien to my background, to fisheries ecology, that, oh, this is really cool what so and so has to say. But yeah, he interviewed me. It went about an hour, and he was largely focused on why is your background so weird and so fragmented, but you've managed to cobble together that fragmentation to put together some pretty interesting solutions for particularly fish habitat. And I was like, yeah, I never thought of it that way. But and then I've been asked to be speakers at events. St. Clair Region Conservation Authority has an agricultural drain or soil health day, and they want me to come and talk as a keynote speaker on agricultural drainage stuff. And I'm thinking, well, that's kind of peripheral to soil health, but I guess keeping things hydrated, but also having habitat as a value to protect, coexist with farmers is a good thing to talk about. So yeah.
It does. That's why I was at the AGM in the first place. They asked me to be a speaker at their meeting. for the
Okay.
Ontario Woodlot Association, but to like talk about fluvial geomorphology and my masters and stuff, and then how all of that comes together to relate to forestry and them directly as landowners. That's why I was
Well,
there. So I think it might be something similar like
yeah,
that. It would
yeah.
like that's not my expertise, but it's yours. I would love it if you came and
No,
talked.
it's very cool that you're doing that. This is how careers take off, and I'm so happy to hear that from you. So,
Oh, I think I will let you go. Otherwise, we'll gab for 4 hours, and then
yeah,
you'll never get
absolutely. Yeah.
dinner.
Nice to talk with you. I'm glad that you're doing this. It's an awesome
Thank
thing
you.
that you're doing, and I hope to hear more and more about it. So I'll have to check. I'm not on Instagram at all. I'm trying to limit the brain rot that I think I get personally from social media. So
Yeah.
is there a way other than Instagram to view what you're doing?
Yeah, I post on everything. So whether it's Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, these chats are on YouTube. There's also a Patreon. But
Okay,
if you ever want to see any of the content, I can send it to you. There's a actually the best way to do that would probably be the e-newsletter. It's free. You just put
okay,
in your email address, you get added to it. I send it once a month, and that's the only email I send. But it's I produce a print copy as well, and it's the same content from the print copy, just
okay.
in
I
email.
am a YouTube user, so if you wouldn't mind sending me a link to, I don't want to see this because I've lived it, but your other ones, like the thread
Yeah.
itself, I'd love that through YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll send you an email and then I'll send you the link for it. Then
Okay.
you can see all the other career chats with all the
Yeah, yeah,
other
yeah.
random environmentally
Yeah.
significant people.
Well, the network of environmental people is super important. I'm preaching to the choir. I don't need to tell you that, but the more I know, even though I'm probably at the end of my career, that's great. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much for your time today. I really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.
Thanks. You too, Shelby. Take
Take
care.
care.
Stay in
Bye-bye.
touch, eh?
Yes, definitely. Bye.
Thanks. Thanks. Bye.